Welcome to the final event of this year's Vrbo Virtual Partner Summit. Let me just say they saved the best for last, so thank you for being here. My name is Kelly Barton, and I am the Senior Director of Global Trust Health and Safety for Expedia Group. We're going to cover a range of topics today, all really focused on protecting your rental, your guests, and yourself. And during registration, we did ask you to provide any questions that you might have. So we'll get to that Q&A towards the end of the presentation. Got a lot of great questions, and a number of them were about parties that take place in vacation rentals or party houses. I assure you we're going to talk about that in depth a little bit later on in this presentation, really around when you're protecting your property. So welcome to the final session, and thank you for being here with us. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about why safety matters. So let's just set the stage. Why does safety matter? And then go into discussing specific strategies for how you can keep your guests safe. And then we're going to talk about how you can protect your business as well as your property or properties if you have more than one. So why safety matters? Well, you're here, so thank you. So we already know that you care about safety, and that is very important to you. And there's a number of reasons why safety matters to your business. The first is to protect from harm. There's a lot of great things that you can do to prevent an incident from even happening, preventing harm, and even preventing any type of accidental death that takes place. The last phone call that you want to receive is that a guest staying in your home has been harmed in any way. And the second reason why safety matters so much is because travelers have told us that safety is extremely important to them. So from the inside of the property and what you offer to the location of where your property is, safety is always on travelers' minds and they're thinking about it. Safety can be used as a marketing tool. This is not something that most people think about. But because we know travelers are concerned about safety, they ask for this type of information, you can use your safety practices as an advantage so that you're attracting to those travelers that are concerned about it. We had a traveler tell us that they will not even consider booking a house that has a pool unless they can see in the photos that the pool has a fence around it and that they can see the devices that are available for pool safety. Some photographers, they might want to crop those things out or maybe angle the shot so they're not quite as prominent because it might look a little bit better aesthetically. But to safety conscientious travelers, that tells them a different story. So think about that. If it's not clear in your photos, you're going to want to have something written out in your property description. Owners tell us that one of the top questions is about a pool fence. So between your photos and, better yet, a virtual tour, please consider having a virtual tour of your property. It really can be an advantage to you so that your travelers feel much more comfortable booking your property. As well, we recently did a survey and more than 50% of the travelers told us that they expect a property to have safety features, specifically a fire alarm and carbon monoxide detector. And so these are things that travelers are telling us, and we want to make sure you have this information so that you can update your property listing, and provide a better, more safe experience for your guests. One more reason why safety matters, of course, is your liability and insurance. There's been times where property owners are held liable for harm that has happened to a guest while staying in their vacation rental home. Preventable incidents can and do have an impact on your insurance. And lastly, as more business turns to vacation rentals, the public as well as the press are taking a closer look at these and just what is out there for safety requirements. You can see the intense coverage of hidden cameras and of decks that are falling. These are the types of things that you can easily prevent from happening. And by demonstrating your commitment to providing a safe experience, you become a leader in the industry, and you can help save lives. But also by focusing on safety for your entire community governments and the regulation bodies in your area are going to see the work that you're doing, and hopefully that will lead to much more reasonable regulations. And so let's dive into guest safety and some of the safety best practices that we want to share with you, so that guests are having a good time, they do feel safe, you don't get that phone call in the middle of the night, and then we'll discuss more about protecting your property. First, I'd be remiss if I did not start this session with 2 key safety essentials. I mentioned them a moment ago: carbon monoxide and fire prevention tools. According to the Centers for Disease Control, and we've certainly heard from that organization over the past year with the pandemic, 50,000 people visit the emergency room each year due to carbon monoxide poisoning. This is preventable. We strongly recommend that every rental have a carbon monoxide and fire alarm installed. Now, just having these alarms installed is not going to be enough. You need to also think about the sources of carbon monoxide. So you may not have a gas stove or oven in your condo unit, but perhaps the condo building itself does. This is also why it's important for you to be thinking about the sources, because having a carbon monoxide detector in your unit may also be helping your travelers stay safe for something that's not actually in your unit, but could be coming from the outside. So carbon monoxide is a neutral gas. That means it's not low to the ground and it's not up high. It is neutral and all around. It's colorless, it's odorless, and it's tasteless. And this is why it's often called like the hidden poison, because you can't taste it, you can't smell it, and it's produced from burning gasoline, wood. So think about your wood burning fireplaces if you have one, charcoal. Think about your grills, and any other fuel. So improperly ventilated appliances, engines, boilers, or any that are in a tightly sealed or enclosed space are going to create a higher risk for carbon monoxide to accumulate to dangerous levels. So take a look at your gas-powered laundry machines, your stoves and ovens if you have a fireplace. And again, think about what your condo building or what might be next door as well. Just make sure that they're all able to be properly ventilated and have those carbon monoxide detectors installed. Among the top searched features on Vrbo is a kitchen. And I myself find, looking at the kitchen, zooming in particularly to find out if there's a coffee maker. Addicted to coffee, got mine here. It's something that's really important to me and to many other travelers. And so with a kitchen, though, comes potential fire. And according to the National Fire Protection Association, ranges or cooktops are involved in 61% of home fires. And so we recommend that you have fire alarms installed. There's even smart fire alarms that will not only alert your guest, but also can alert you that there's a fire in the rental. So take a look into the different types of technology that's out there these days. It's not just the old school smoke detector that you mount to the ceiling. Strongly recommend that you have a working fire extinguisher. Please make sure that you check the expiration date. They do expire. And make sure that there are operating instructions that are clearly available to your guests. A colleague once told us that a fire had started in the rental that they were staying in. It had a fire extinguisher. They were relieved. They went to use it and it wasn't working. So he and his family had to flee from the rental. We want to make sure that that doesn't happen to you or to any of your properties. So top safety essentials. You might already know that we have these that you can select on your property listing, but I want you to understand we're always adding more. So please, return back into your Vrbo dashboard, or if you use a property manager, make sure that, their software is up to date with what can be published on our site. Check the home safety section and make sure that you've got everything selected and filled out. Please also keep it up to date. If you've included emergency instructions or emergency contact information, make sure that that is kept up to date. You can also mention that you have a first aid kit, and I just mentioned the emergency instructions, such as where's the nearest hospital. When I'm on vacation, it doesn't quite occur to me that I should map out, well, where is the nearest hospital or urgent care? Or if I'm in a different country, what would the contact information be? So we show these items to travelers not only when they're shopping and looking to book, but as well in an email to them days before they are due to check into your property. Family travelers are really important to Vrbo, and you may have seen our new commercials about bringing families back together. For over 25 years, Vrbo has been focused on families and families traveling together. Since it is a key travel segment for us, we know that families like to bring their children along. And with family travel, there's a few extra safety features and essentials than what we just talked about that are really important for children. So think of areas that are really popular for families. Central Florida, for instance, with a number of different theme parks and attractions. That's an area, if that's where your property is located, you might want to think about some of these additional child safety protection measures, such as safety glass. A lot of properties might have a patio door, maybe leading out to the pool or to the deck. Consider having safety glass installed so that it won't break. Kids might, run around, they get excited, they want to run out to the pool, and they could run into it on accident. And you certainly don't want that glass to be breaking on them and cutting them. There's also a lot of smart tech out there these days that you can install, things like around your pool, that it'll monitor the pH level. I once owned a house with a pool, and it was really, really hot one summer day and had an impact on the pH level and the chlorine. Without realizing it, this was my personal home. When I got out of the pool, I had a number of just marks on my body that felt really hot and red, and it was really uncomfortable, almost like a skin rash. And so what I did some searching, like what would have caused this? I get the pool cleaned and everything else, and come to find out it was due to a combination of chemical reactions. And so these are the types of things that you might not think about because you do have your pool serviced and cleaned. But there are smart devices out there that can help you keep better tabs on these things. And always, if you do have a pool, please have flotation devices and availability nearby so that people can throw them to someone who might be in need. I'm not talking about the cute flamingo floaties, although those are really fun to have. And they come in all different shapes and sizes these days. I personally love the unicorn one. But make sure you've got that available to your guests. Please also make sure your pool has depth markers. These are the measurements in feet or meters that are placed around the pool edge. You might also see signs for them. There was a case a number of years ago where an individual dove into a swimming pool that did not have depth markers, and the individual misjudged how deep it was and suffered quite the injury from that. So I also want to touch on elevators. You've likely seen that the Consumer Protection Agency in the United States recently issued guidelines pertaining to residential elevators. And one of them was to shut down any elevator until you've had an inspection. Kids can get stuck in the crack if it's not properly updated. So whether your home has an elevator, some do, or if you're part of a condo building or a resort that they might have elevators taking you to the different floors. Check with your condo association or your homeowners association, whoever is overseeing that shared elevator, to make sure that they're getting the safety inspections completed in time. Cleanliness. This is really important, and 1 in 3 travelers want to see the specific cleanliness protocols that you are following for your vacation rental. Cleanliness has always been important, but through this pandemic, we've really seen how important cleanliness practices are to not only ourselves, to travelers, and all over the businesses. You see more and more businesses explaining what they're doing to keep their area clean. Strongly recommend that you review our enhanced cleaning and disinfection guidelines, and that will help prevent the spread of any type of infection. And you can update your property listing to showcase your cleaning practices. This is really important to your guests. We surveyed over 16,000 travelers, and that's where the 1 in 3 comes from. They want to see the messaging around the cleanliness standards before they stay. They want to know what they're walking into. We also see that a number of the negative reviews and feedback that we receive about vacation rentals on Vrbo mention something about cleanliness. So this isn't always COVID related. It could be pests, it could be dirty linens, it could be grime or mold in the shower. But on the flip side, we also see that good reviews, positive reviews from stays, mention how clean the property was. So we've just talked about how important cleanliness is to all of travelers. And so Vrbo displays the cleanliness information and practices on your listing so that travelers can see them up front. A few of the key cleaning practices that travelers see are your processes for linen and bedding, cleaning and sanitization. Whether or not you have contactless check-in, or if they need to meet with anybody. And then, of course, your general disinfection processes that you have for your entire home, your high-touch areas. Last year, I stayed in a house in South Lake Tahoe. And upon arrival, the house was perfectly clean. The property manager did a great job of having everything ready for us. They left a long list of all the cleaning practices that they have for that home. And it included all kinds of things that I hadn't really thought of. But they also left a bit of supplies of cleaning items for me to use if I wanted to. Now, I can assure you, the last thing I want to do on vacation is clean. But in the midst of the pandemic, when everyone is very concerned about high-touch areas and disinfecting them, it was comforting for me that they had provided that. I certainly don't want to go to the store and buy Lysol, but they had it there if I wanted to use it. They had gloves, they had scrub brushes, they had cleaning spray. So it just felt nice, and it was that extra bit that made a traveler feel a lot more comfortable. And the gesture was surely appreciated. So quick reminder, please, if you're a property owner, log into your Vrbo dashboard and update your cleaning practices. If you are using a property manager who might have software that integrates with us, please make sure that the information they have is accurate and up to date, and that they're providing that over to your Vrbo listing as well. I mentioned that cleanliness can also show up in reviews, and this is a success story from a holiday rental owner in Australia. And it's a really great example on how you can drive favorable reviews. And that you can do that with proactive communication, particularly around your cleaning practices. So this property owner has a lakeside property, certainly a favorite among Vrbo guests. But this property owner goes the extra mile to provide detailed cleanliness guidelines and has even begun to provide that additional cleaning practices since the pandemic started. Really wants to make guests feel comfortable and safe while staying there. And so by mentioning these little details, making sure it's very clear to guests, he has seen that guests are essentially repaying him to the tune of over 90 reviews, averaging a 4.9 out of 5 stars. And so this goes back to what I mentioned, that you can use what you're doing for safety and cleanliness as a marketing tool. So now that you know a bit about our safety essentials and what travelers want, we also want to talk about some of the key Vrbo policies related to safety that we really want you to be aware of. The first is around surveillance devices, such as a camera, like a hidden camera. Okay, we understand that you want a camera so that you can monitor who might be coming and going into your home. You might be using it for safety and security purposes. That said, guests expect a reasonable level of privacy. And our policy is that cameras must only be at the outside of the property and that it has to be disclosed in advance on your property listing. We also ask that you do not save the data. We want to honor our guests' privacy. So again, if you have a camera such as a Nest camera maybe at your front door, it needs to be disclosed to your travelers in advance on your property listing. You cannot have a camera inside. It is wildly uncomfortable and it does not honor the reasonable expectation of privacy that guests want. A few years ago, a property owner asked me about cameras, and he was sharing with me that he has a camera in the backyard because he has a swimming pool and he's really concerned about liability. And, I hear you, I understand, and I get it. Now, if I'm a traveler and I want to lounge by the pool and maybe avoid tan lines, if you pick up my drift, if I look up and I see a camera, I'm gonna be really creeped out. So think about your guests. Think about what they are experiencing. They're there to enjoy your whole home, to have that privacy, to be with their family and loved ones, and certainly do not need to come across a camera that they didn't know about in advance. Property access is another important safety and security policy that we want to make sure everyone, particularly you, property owners and managers, you are very clear on this. You may not leave keys in a public place where the owner or property manager or staff is not present. And this is why keyless entry is such a great option. So at my home, as well as my second home, I'm a new second home owner. I'm very excited to turn that into a Vrbo. I use a wireless keypad. It's from a company called Wise. I am not endorsing them. It's just something that I have found that works well for me. Really cost effective and affordable. And what it does is that I don't have to have anything rekeyed. Everything still works. It attaches to your current lock, and then you can have the keypad placed elsewhere. And what's great about this is that I can use my regular keys if I want to. So if the battery dies, the key still works. And I can assign codes to people. So my mother-in-law might have her own code to get into the house. A cleaner might have their own code, and you can set a schedule for when it will work for them. Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., for instance. For guests, it will be great because you can give guest one their code for the dates of their stay. And then the next guest has their own code and it works for their dates of stay. So again, please don't leave your keys out in public unless you, the owner, property manager, or a member of staff is going to be there to give it to the travelers. Weapons guidelines. So this is something that we had to address a few years ago. And what we really want travelers and partners to understand is that if there is going to be a weapon on premise, need to be specific about the type of weapon that either is there or that you're going to allow or not allow. Please make sure that you're very clear with your guests on this. Make sure that your guests know if there is a weapon stored, where it is, so that they're not caught off guard. We understand that there's some properties, particularly in like the Northwest United States, that might be ideal for hunting cabins. Great, but please just make sure that your guests know if you're keeping any of your personal weapons there at the home. And our violence and discrimination policy. We expect all members of our community, that's you, partners, owners, property managers, as well as travelers, to demonstrate respect and tolerance in all interactions with each other, both online as you're communicating and offline when you might be in person. If we know that key big events are going to be happening in your area that may involve anything related to or could cause violence or discrimination practices, We'll often email you and let you know about it and a reminder on this policy. If you suspect that there is any kind of misconduct at your property related to violence and or discrimination, please contact us and ask us for some further assistance. So thank you for staying with us this far. And let's talk about a little bit more in terms of protecting your property and your business. Regular inspections. We mentioned this about your elevator if you have one, but please make sure that you are honoring any locally required inspections. Some jurisdictions are turning to this to make vacation rentals even more safe for their communities. And consider having a vacation rental safety audit performed. There are individual third parties that can come to your property and perform a safety audit. There's one organization in the United States called Breezeway that you could consider using, and they'll come to your property and work with you to understand where are those safety matters, where are those safety concerns, so that you as a property owner can be much more informed and be able to address the key issues. And let's talk about party houses. We know that parties are a concern for you. And so I want to make sure that everyone understands our party house policy. So first, my personal opinion is it's not always about the party house. It's not always about the house. Sometimes it is an unexpected event that might take place, especially an unauthorized event. But we're honoring that, known as party houses. And so this is the topic we want to make sure we're covering. First, know that we do conduct risk assessments on bookings. So if we detect that a booking might look like it could be something that could turn into an unauthorized event or a party, then we will notify not only the person who's booking your property and remind them of our policy, but we will also send you an email giving you the opportunity to do an extra review on that reservation. Maybe talk to that guest, understand a little bit more about what their stay is going to be about. And our policy is pretty strong about this. If a traveler hosts an unauthorized disruptive event, we may prohibit them from renting on Vrbo again. If a party becomes a nuisance and an owner or property manager allowed the event, we may also evaluate if we are going to allow that property and partner to continue to be on the Vrbo platform. We'll most likely contact you first, try to understand more about what happened, but it might be something that leads to a removal. This is regardless of if the specific event was booked through Vrbo or not. And we're in our very early stages of the community integrity program with Airbnb, which is where we're going to be working together to slow down and stop these types of events and parties from taking place. We know that it's a negative light on the entire industry, and so we want to work together to address it. Should be launching in the United States in the next couple of months, and so look out for more information on that. So how you can prevent these things from happening. Set clear expectations before a stay happens. Absolutely make sure your guests know what your expectations and house rules are. What are the restrictions that you're going to apply? So fill those in your house rules. Every guest has to accept those house rules before they book on Vrbo. So help yourself avoid making any type of awkward phone calls or having any awkward interactions with a guest with anything unexpected. So be clear, be upfront with your rules, and be ready to enforce those rules. If you receive a booking from someone that's, say, last minute, maybe they live in the same city, you might want to follow up with them and ask a little bit more about the purpose of their stay, or if you have a large home, maybe a 6-7 bedroom house, but there's only one person staying there, maybe have a conversation with them about that and understand a bit more. These are the types of things that we've seen when a booking turns into an unauthorized event. We also recommend that you use a noise monitoring device. These do not listen to conversations. They're not recording conversations. This is only a noise monitor level and can notify you if it gets above the setting that you've elected for. One thing as well is we've also seen that some properties will advertise themselves as being ideal for bachelor or bachelorette parties or similar events. If you receive a large group request, follow up with them and make sure that they understand your expectation around noise and events and hold all bookings to the same standard. As well, and lastly, please establish a relationship and a rapport with your neighbors. Some vacation rentals are within areas where there are full-time residents. So get to know your neighbors. Make sure they have your contact information should they need to reach out to you and talk to you about anything, or just give you feedback like, ooh, that last guest really left a mess in the backyard or something like that. They can sometimes be your eyes and ears on the ground and let you know what's going on, especially if you don't live nearby. In preparing for natural disasters, so natural disasters are scary. They come at an uncertain time. There's a little bit of, seasonality to say the Atlantic hurricane season. But other than that, they're really jarring. And we're here to support you as well as travelers during a natural disaster, during a storm. So, but we do want you to try to prepare for these. Even areas that might not have been historically known to be experiencing any type of natural disasters. We are seeing floods occur, particularly after there's been a forest fire or a wildfire in the area. If there's been heavy rainfall, that can cause flooding and mudslides. So we recommend that you take the Red Cross readiness training. There's a number of things in there. It's very detailed training and all the best ways that you can prepare for a storm. Since not all of you are going to be near your property, maybe at the time, please consider downloading a disaster preparedness and alert app. There's quite a few out there. I have one actually on my phone related to earthquakes. And there are a lot of earthquakes. They're small, but they take place all the time. So, just different apps that you can be notified, particularly for your area. We talked about this a little bit ago in the safety section, but making sure that you've got an emergency kit, a safety kit for your travelers in the property. Make sure they know where it is, that they can access it, that it's not hidden in some back closet someplace. Make sure it's in an easily accessible location. And please review your insurance policies and encourage guests to purchase their own trip insurance for what they'll need for their stay. Natural disasters can be an incredibly anxious time. And so providing communication to your guests, updating them with information will help them feel more comfortable about it. And if your property has a generator, make sure it's not kept in the garage or a covered awning or anything like that. Make sure it's properly ventilated. Oftentimes these are gas powered, and we've talked about carbon monoxide poisoning. So make sure that the batteries are fresh and up to date. It's been inspected by whoever needs to take a good look at it, and make sure that you are ready to have your travelers use it. When a natural disaster does take place, cancellations that take place will not have an impact on your premier host status. Let us know when the cancellation has to take place due to natural disaster, and we make sure that there's no impact on your ranking metrics or your premier host status. You no longer have to call customer service to get that cancellation waived from anything. Just select natural disaster as the cancellation reason, and we'll take care of the rest. If you do have to cancel due to a natural disaster, we really, really encourage you to issue a full refund to that guest. This is a tricky time for everyone, but if the guest can't even get to your property and you know that you've been made aware that the bridge is closed or the ferry isn't operating, and the guest can't even get there, that is no fault of their own. So, we would look to you to issue a full refund. Of course, Vrbo's traveler service fee is automatically returned to a guest when a full refund is issued by yourself. They can also contact customer service if they have any questions as well. Please, you can too. We can also help you block your calendar or even hide your property listing for a period of time. So if your home's been impacted by a natural disaster, a hurricane, or a flooding incident, let us know and we'll work with you to make sure that we can block your calendar or hide your listing. And make sure that your guests can contact you during their stay if something happens during stay. So this goes back to that emergency contact information we mentioned earlier, not just having it on your property listing, but in the home itself. We talked about blocking your calendars on that last page. So it's an ideal way to ensure that travelers are not inquiring or requesting a booking for days that it's not going to be available, such as it's under remodeling or it needs to be cleaned. So to make sure that you know how to block your dates, you're going to log into your account, click the property listing that you want to edit, and from there, click on the calendar button. It's on the left-hand side of your account. Click on reservations, and then there's a little plus sign at the top of the page in the add reservation panel, and go ahead and click blocked to block your dates. And that will block those calendar dates without creating a manual reservation of any kind. It will actually block them out. Be sure to click save. You don't want to lose any of the changes you've made. And if you are impacted by a natural disaster, give us a call. We can do this for you. And we know that you're busy doing other things and that blocking your calendar might not be something that you've got the time to sit down and do. So give us a call and we'll help you with that. So tech investment recommendations, I mentioned the smart key lock that I personally use. I love it. There's electrical fire notifications. There's even a new device I've seen commercials for recently for carbon monoxide alerts. Just a beep is not going to be enough to be inclusive to all traveler types. And so you want to make sure that you're thinking about what are the other ways that you can notify guests if there's something that's going on in the home, as well notify you if you're not around. So those smart detectors, think about maybe solar powered detectors and devices, battery operated ones, and make sure the batteries are replaced on a regular basis. All right, so key takeaways is going to, before we get into Q&A, a few things that we've covered today. Update your listing with your safety features, as well as your cleanliness information. Make sure those are both really clear for your travelers to see. Second, prepare for the unexpected by scheduling reviews and inspections on your property, and even consider having an audit performed to see where things might be lurking that you haven't quite considered yet. Protect your property by setting those clear expectations with guests. Make sure your house rules are accurate and up to date, and be ready to enforce them. Everything from your weapon policy to rules about parties, make sure it's very clear. And you can always see more information about our policy information by going to vrbo.com/trust. Okay, so Q&A. As I mentioned, we asked in advance during a registration if you had any questions, and so here are a few of them that have come in. A lot of great questions. So I'm going to read some of the ones that were submitted. Here we go. How does your liability insurance work? Okay, so we have a $1 million liability insurance, provides owners and managers with liability protection for every booking process through Vrbo checkout. It gives you $1 million in primary liability coverage. No matter what policy you might currently have on your own, this one is applied to that particular booking, and it is at no cost to you. So if you don't already have liability policy insurance, great. This one is here for you. And if you already do, then this works as a supplement as well. Vrbo works with Generali Global Assistance, which is part of the multinational Generali Group. They have over 185 years of experience across 60 countries. So if you need to make a claim, you'll be able to work with them directly. And just a few things before you do file a claim that you want to have ready. So full details on what happened. Be prepared to explain what took place, who was involved, when. Provide any and all related documentation that you might have. That includes emails and text messages, photos, videos, anything that you might have. And of course, be prepared with the names of those people who may have been injured or that are claiming damages. Always recommend that you have homeowners insurance, as it does have additional coverage, such as property damage. And your local area or your HOA may require you to have it separately. So yes, the $1 million liability insurance is fantastic, but also consider having additional protections for your home and for your business. What types of safety items do I need for a multi-generational families? Great question. There was a design session done by Sophie Donaldson, and she dives into how designing for multi-generational families. It will be available online, so if you didn't get a chance to take that one, keep an eye out and you will be able to stream it and watch it. So highly recommend it. We talked about child safety during this talk, talking about like pool safety in places where kids might fall or run into a glass door. But, there are other family members of all shapes, sizes, ages, heights, weights. So think about a few other things that you might want to have in your property. Grab bars in bathrooms and hallways is a really common one to think about. That helps, navigate around the bathroom a little bit easier. They have really nice stylish ones these days. It's not quite like it used to be with just industrial looking aluminum. Although those are great too if that's what you've got. Also recommend that, if you have any area rugs, either remove them or make sure that they are secured to the floor. There might be a rug pad that helps you do that, or tape. There's some products out there that help you keep area rugs in place. They're really easy to slip on, and even if your property is pet friendly, dog might run through and ruffle up that area rug. So having it secured to the floor is really going to be helpful. Another thing to think about, it would be lighting. You want to make sure that all of your areas are really well lit. Maybe motion detector night lights. So if somebody gets up in the middle of the night to use the washroom or get a drink of water, they're not stumbling around. Remember, it's an unfamiliar territory to everyone else. We all get comfortable with our homes and we know where the walls are as we stumble in the middle of the night, but your guests don't. So having lighting is really going to be helpful for them. And when you mention all of this information in your property listing, it helps those multi-generational families decide if this is the right property for them. If they see what you're doing, what you offer, can help them make a much more informed decision, and have a good conversation with you. So if they get to the house and it doesn't have what they thought, well, they can have a conversation with you about that to understand what it is that they read on your property listing and what it is that's actually in the home. How should we handle rule breakers? Okay, well, first of all, we're going to investigate whatever it is that you report to us, and we may remove travelers for any type of misconduct and violating your house rules. So please make sure that we're informed. You can easily call customer service, let us know, but just like when you're preparing for any type of liability claim, have as much information available to us, all the details, so that we can work with you with your cooperation to address it. If there's ever any illegal behavior or activities taking place at your rental, We recommend that you work with your local authorities on that, but please also notify us. All the same reasons I just mentioned. We want to look into it, work with you, and see what we can do about preventing it from happening again. I mentioned this before, but it's really important that you work closely with your neighbors. So if they see something that's going on or they hear that something is happening at your property and you're not nearby, they have your contact information and they know how to reach you to get you involved. If there's ever a safety concern that's taking place, please get local law enforcement involved. We want to make sure that you stay safe and that authorities are there to enforce the laws, the house rules, etc., and handle it. So that concludes our 2021 Virtual Partner Summit. And I can't thank all of you enough for being here, particularly for my session. We've really enjoyed connecting with all of you this week. It is you, all of our partners, our owners, our managers. You're what makes this business great. You provide great guest experiences, and I love everything about it. I've been here for 16 years, and every time we get to connect with our partners, whether it's just one-on-one or at a summit like this, it's really reinvigorating and gets me so excited about what we're going to be able to do next together. Please stay tuned. Our 2022 event announcement is going to be coming up. We hope to see you virtually and in person next year. So please take care of yourself, take care of others, and we'll see you again next year. Thanks, everyone. Bye.